from our Washington, D.C. chapter, Nia 2X, from Los Angeles, Reverend Dr. K.W. Toulis, our Northeast Regional Director, Steffi Bartley, our Atlantic City Director, chapter leader, just opened a new office, hasn't invited me yet, but I got the word that Stephen Young, Anthony Allen from Houston, Texas, chapter and national board member Sheila Tyson, Birmingham, Alabama, Baltimore, Maryland, the godfather of the network, Larry Young, from Brooklyn, New York, my pastor, Reverend Adolphus Lacey, Latisse Cook from Austin, Texas, Warren Ellington from Macon, Georgia, the director of Los Angeles, California, the Reverend Dr. Jonathan Mosley, Imani McCurry from Kansas City, Jasmine McCurry, Tiffany James from Columbia, South Carolina, and Sylvia Coleman from New Jersey, Cynthia Dawkins from Newark, William Franklin Richardson III from Port St. Lucie, Florida, Porter Peoples from Philadelphia, Matthew Smith from Philadelphia, Warren Ellington from Philadelphia. I'm sorry, Warren Ellington's from Macon, Walt Dixie from Syracuse, Don Tolliver from Tallahassee, Florida, Felicia Simmons from Asbury Park, and we have delegates here from Utah, Alabama, and Macon. So these are just a few who registered. The good news we have, you have two things in common. All of you are leaders and members of National Action Network, and all of you are COVID free because you wouldn't have got in here if you wouldn't. We had the protocol for the hotel is you had to be tested to come up, so we can feel free that we know you COVID tested or have gotten a vaccine. So we're going to ask our chapter leaders to come across the front. We want to cut the ribbon, then we're going to hear and do what we have the President of the United States and others that will address us virtually. Give a hand out, chapter leaders from all over the country. Reverend, my pastor Lacey got a brand new bow tie on for this occasion. All right, we have officially cut the ribbon. Let it begin. Give yourselves a big hand. Let us hear, before we start, our virtual officials from the chairman of the board, who has led us gallantly and with great vision. We could not have had a better chairman of the board than we have. When National Action Network started 30 years ago, our first chairman of the board was Reverend Dr. Wyatt T. Walker. Dr. Walker was the executive director in the early 60s for Dr. King. And we were honored and felt it was providential that since this organization, even in its mission statement, says that we operate in the spirit of Dr. King, and his executive director was our first chairman. When he became ill and had to begin, his schedule began to have to be altered, including his duties as pastor of Canaan Baptist Church. He asked Dr. Richardson, who was vice chair of the board, to take over, and Dr. Richardson has been with us ever since as chairman and has helped develop and govern. This is not a board in name, it is a real board with real compliance and real governing power. And we will later this year, after COVID has died down, have a large 30th anniversary celebration. But as of March, this organization's 30 years old, and we've come the last 15 years under the chairmanship of Reverend Dr. W. Franklin Richardson. Not only does he pastor Grace Baptist Church and chair National Action Network, he chairs the Board of Trustees for Virginia Union University. So let us hear from our chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President, and to all of the members of the board of National Action Network, and to our chapter leaders, and to all of you who have gathered here today. I'm delighted to continue this relationship with an extraordinary leader who has taken us into a whole new era of engagement and empowerment in the person of our organizer, founder, the Reverend Al Sharpton. Let's celebrate him. He is just spectacular. And I'm privileged to have his partnership in multiple activities, and his friendship is a tremendous cherish to me. I want to celebrate his family, his daughters and grandchild, and all of them who make this a real solid community. Let me tell you, the fact that we are gathered here is indicative of the resolve of the National Action Network. National Action Network is determined to not be obstructed in our pursuit for justice and equality. And the very fact that we're having our convention virtually in these tough and difficult circumstances is an illustration of how resolved we are and how committed we are to the mission of full equality and justice for all people in this nation, particularly African Americans. And so give yourselves a hand that you showed up in this environment, in this climate, in this time of challenge. I quickly want to say, I'm not going to give a speech, but I quickly want to say a couple things. One is, there is in the ancient text a statement made by Jeremiah that says, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. He goes on to say that the prophet looks, he says, my heart is dark and astonishment has overtaken me. Then he raises this rhetorical question, is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no physician there? The truth of the matter is that while we come year in, year out in these challenging times, we come realizing that even though we've made great progress, and there can be no question about the progress that African Americans have made, and we must not ever downplay how successful we have been, because no other people could have survived what we've had to go through. Nobody else could have done what we've done with so little. So do not feel inferior, do not feel destabilizing. Understand that we have a lot to celebrate. We have come a mighty long ways. 400 years of slavery and resistance and oppression, but we've come through. And you and I who sit here today, we are living evidence that we are survivors. And we must emphasize that every step. But at the same time, we must pay attention to the fact that even though all that has happened, we have not yet fulfilled our potential and promise. Like that ancient prophet Jeremiah, he looks around at the famine and the despair of his people, and he says, the harvest is past, the summer's ended, and we're not saved. That means that the things that should have delivered us have failed us. The things that should have produced our full participation have failed us. He says, we have planted. Well, you know, when you plant, it's a reasonable expectation that you're going to see some harvest. Nobody plants expecting the seeds to stay in the ground. They expect the seeds to bring forth fruit. And when you sacrifice and plant, when you dig and plant and water and cultivate and make sure the sunlight, you are expecting that you're going to get a harvest. African-American people have been planting in this state. We're not Johnny-come-latelys in America. We've always been here. We're the first one to die in 1776 in Crispus Attucks. We've always been here. We didn't show up here. We've been here from the very foundation of this nation. And we have been planting all the time. The problem is that though we've been planting, we have not received the harvest. And the reason we didn't receive the harvest is the people who picked up the harvest kept all the harvest for themselves and kept the money and kept the resources. And so we have been able to have to struggle without resources because we were restricted from receiving the harvest of the seeds we had planted. Our efforts have not been paid for. That's why we speak of reparations. We speak of it because we've never been acknowledged. We've never received resources. You talk about old money. Old money is the money that the white people kept from the black people for their free labor. Old money is our money. Old money is the money we did not get for the sacrifices we made to build this country. On our backs, the cotton gin became a vehicle for our liberation and forged the greatest economic economy in the history of the world on the backs of black people who did not get anything for what they did. The harvest is past. We've watched legislations come year after year after year. We've watched new laws pass. We've been protesting. We've been marching. We organized organizations. We've written books. We've done everything that you could to bring attention to the injustice that has risen in this country. And yet, here this morning, there is great inequality. The fight still goes on. The harvest is past. The things that should have produced results have passed. And we are not saved. We're not saved by every measure of equality, every measure of human existence. No matter what you look at, every measure of quality of life, black people are at the bottom. Whether it's education, health, infant mortality, AIDS, obesity, jobs, home ownership, every measure of quality of life in African-American communities is diminished. We have not been saved. We have been ostracized, rejected, and denied. We are not saved. We've not realized our potential, and yet we planted. We didn't just show up here. And we're not going back. We're not going back to Africa. Matter of fact, we're not going back to Africa until the Italians go back to Italy, and the French go back to France, and the Spanish go back to Spain, and the Jews go back to Jerusalem. We're not going back. And even then, we still ain't going back because we have invested and we claim our place and our space in this nation. Harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. We're still marginalized. We're still denied. The National Action Network has not lost focus on the fact that there's still gross inequities in America. And it's no more manifested in the killings of our sons and daughters by the police of the state, unjustly killing our sons and daughters. It is evident, right as we sit here today, the courts are filled of cases that are being addressed because of the maltreatment of black people by the police. We're not saved. Even after having a black man as president for 2 terms with an impeccable record and having brought the country, declared by some to be the best president was in the history of America, and yet we are not saved. With 60 African Americans in Congress, we are not saved. With new laws on the books, we are not saved. With thousands protesting, 200,000 at the march, last year, we are not saved. We still have not reached our potential. Do not go to sleep. Wake up. We are not saved. The harvest is past, the summer's ended, and we are not saved. That passage means that harvest, there was a spring harvest. And when the spring harvest came, there was no results. And then he said there was a summer harvest. So usually if the harvest in the spring didn't come through, the harvest in the summer would come through. And when the harvest didn't come through, both the spring and the summer harvest, the writer says, and we are not saved. The harvest has been. I challenge us this day. I challenge us as colleagues in the National Action Network, partners for justice. I challenge us to not lose focus and not be rocked to sleep and act like everything is okay. We are the radical voice of African Americans for justice in this country. And God has blessed us to have the stage. The National Action Network is the strongest, most effective civil rights organization in this country today, under the leadership of Reverend Al Sharpton. We must not go asleep. The cemeteries are full of too many victims who've given their lives, who are depending on us to make sure that their lives have not been given for nothing. Too many sons and daughters have been destroyed, and we must make sure they have not been forgotten. We must make sure that sacrifice, their blood, was not wasted blood. Harvest is finished. Harvest is over. The summer's ended. We're not saved. Jeremiah says, he says, my heart is dark. Every black person ought to have a dark heart, given the circumstances we face. The heart, he says, my heart is dark. Blackness has overtaken me, astonishment. And then he raises this rhetorical question, is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no physician there? Is there no remedy? You see, the balm in Gilead was a medicinal town, and all the doctors lived in Gilead. And they gathered the medicines, and the medicines provided cure for sicknesses. America is rich, abundant, the richest country in the history of the world. But is there no balm? Is there no justice for us? America has everything, more than anything in the world, but is there no balm? I contend to you that there is a balm in Gilead. And the balm is us. We the balm. The National Action Network, we the balm. African Americans who have a resolve to be free, we are the balm. We the balm. We are the answer. We are our own answer. We must fight on 4 prongs: education. We must see to it that our children have competence. Our children study. We must save historically black colleges. We must foster economic leverage. We must not spend our money with people who will not support us or work against us, who use the money to fight, to support Trumpism in this nation. We must be careful where we spend our money. Not only economic and educational, but more than ever, political engagement. From public policy to new legislation to voting. Let me tell you, even in this upcoming election in New York, the primary, they're expecting us to stay home. When we stay home, they get their way. There's an emerging movement in New York and across the country. You may not be aware, but it's counter to our movement. It looks like us, but it ain't us. It talks like us, but it ain't us. It doesn't have our objectives. It doesn't have us as a priority. And we must stand up and go out to the polls more than ever before. No election, you heard Reverend in the film clip, no election can we afford to count, dismiss. Whether it's a dog catcher's election, we got to turn out numbers like never before. because we the bomb. We are the bomb. We are the difference. And then we must maintain our spiritual consciousness. Remember that we've come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord. We must pray on our knees and then get up off our knees and live out our prayer on our feet. We are National Action Network, not procrastination network, but Action Network. We don't just pray in the symbolisms of the rituals. We rise up, and we rise up to the potential. Is there a bomb in Gilead? Is there no physician there? Sometimes I feel discouraged and think my work's in vain, but then the Holy Spirit revives my soul again. Yes, there is a bomb in Gilead. There is a physician there, and we, you and me, the National Action Network, we are the bomb.
Dr. W. Franklin Richardson, give him a hand. Let us begin with some virtual addresses. First, let us hear from the President of the United States of America, President Joseph Biden.
Hey, Rev, I wish we could be together in person, but I do want to congratulate you on 30 years of the National Action Network, and thank you for your friendship, your partnership, and most of all, your courageous advocacy through these years. This organization has always been an essential voice, but never more essential than it is today. Upholding and advancing the security and prosperity of health and well-being, dignity and possibilities of all Black Americans. It's time, at a time when the pandemic and the economic crisis continue to devastate Black communities, at a time when the cry for justice, 400 years in the making, is ringing out across our nation, at a time when parts of our country are backsliding into the days of Jim Crow, passing laws that harken back to the era of poll taxes, when Black people were made to guess how many jelly beans in a jar, or count the number of bubbles in a bar of soap before they could cast their ballot. This was un-American then, and it's un-American today. But you're fighting. You're fighting for the soul of America, Rev. And Kamala and I are proud to stand with you. We're proud to pass the American Rescue Plan, which is helping us beat the pandemic and deliver checks into Americans' pockets. That law, on its own, is projected to cut poverty in the Black community by 37%. But from my perspective, it's only the beginning. My American Jobs Plan will make generational investments in rebuilding America, delivering good jobs, equity, and opportunity to Black neighborhoods that never seem to get dealt in on the American dream, replacing every lead drinking water pipe in America so that you never have to worry about another Flint, delivering high-speed internet access to every American home, and building an economy that sees values and pays our caregivers, so many of whom are Black women. We have so much work to do, from criminal justice to police reform to addressing health disparities and voting rights. But I know that together we're going to continue to make extraordinary progress. So thank you. Thank you for everything you do. Congratulations, and God bless you.
Of the United